right, so keep this in mind so that your concepts will be placed right. So this United States Corporation Company has the major part of the service contracts for the United States Republic. All right? And these are your two entities where it says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, right? Or posterity. All right, so that's the two parties. All right? But understand that the Societas Republica et Americanos becomes the United States of America in English. It is the conversion of the Moorish government, the imperial divan, into bringing the European sons into government. This is why all persons in power anywhere in Western Hemisphere, particularly in North America, secretly through their rituals wear Moorish feathers, although they dress them in jewels. And all of their lodges will have Moorish names. And all of their lodges will be given feminine names, back to the matriarchy. However, they'll pin their tassels down because they're not the sovereign. The sovereign, the heirs are asleep. That's y'all. Understand? Now, with the unum sanctum policy, it is the desire of the Jesuit order and those minions who help them to keep you, the heirs, unaware of this, because it changes the whole paradigm. Once you change your thought pattern, the energy around you changes. It has to come from you. It's not going to come from someone else. Understand this. When you get the idea that some program is going to come and rescue you, it ain't going to happen. It has to come absolutely from you. Are we clear? All right, now. So this United States, we're going to jump ahead because I'm going to give you a synopsis before we get into this. This United States, we're jumping up to Lincoln. Keep this in mind so you can understand the scenario, to understand why Odrali did what he did, why the temples were structured the way they were structured, why certain principles were set forth in the charter, and then you'll understand the shells. We're talking right now the shell corporations. Are we clear? All right, now, Lincoln, according to fatwa, Moorish law, because the barristers were operative deputy knights for the Pope Sorbonne under the secret Treaty of Verona to overthrow the republics. Are we clear? Therefore, they could not hold an office in the United States. That's the original Article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections that you don't see in history books, but scholars have, and Masons have, and Skull and Bones has, Illuminati has, Ku Klux Klan has, everybody got it but our people. They get beliefs and programs to keep them busy while they get raped. And it's their Negro leader jobs to keep them passive while they get screwed, while they get paid in the background, pretending they don't know this history. That's why they're all comfortable, got nice parishes, nice cars, $3,000 suits. You know, and anybody that knows secret Treaty of Verona knows that their oath is to the Pope of Romans, not to Jesus. That's why we gave you that, so that you don't start believing what you keep seeing out here that really ain't what you think it is. It's a false matrix. Now, keep these principles in mind. Fatwa, a member of the Barristers Association cannot hold an office of trust in the United States on any level. That's the law of the land. Of course, you know that ain't what's going on. So let's explain why and how. All right? Now, we're jumping up to Lincoln. The Congress adjourned sine die of May 10th, 1861. Write that down, because this is for you to do your research so your concepts will be right. We're not going to go through all this tonight. We're going to give you points so that we're not talking over your head. Because as you know, not enough of you raised your hand when we asked the question from the beginning. So that means if those questions aren't asked, that means she's lost. For those of you who don't want your estate, at least have some decency to make sure she gets hers. Because the truth going to have to come from the mouth of babes anyway, because most of the adults are hypocrites and sellouts. But it says, give her a mic. Give her a mic. Anybody ask questions? You want to go on the mic so that you're good.
I didn't hear dates.
May 10th, 1861, the Congress adjourned Sina D. Now, we got to work with this board because this stuff really doesn't want to come off. Set and Rob, brothers and sisters. There he is. Dr. Naila? So, keep that in mind. The Congress adjourned senior deal. All right? 1861. Now, how many of you know that? Didn't know that? All right. Didn't know that?
I knew that. Oh, you said how many didn't know?
You didn't know that?
I just had a question. I just watched a movie called The Conquest 1892 or 42, I think it was. Was those
Give the mic.
people? I got one of them boxes, right? That you just zoom all around the world and stuff. And I happened to come up on a movie called The Conquest of 18. Can't remember the date. I think it was 1842 or 1892.
Yeah.
I think it was 1842.
What were the historical points made?
The point was it was showing how how Columbus claimed he discovered America when American Vespucci had already claimed those lands, but it was already indigenous people already there on those islands.
All right, that's the reconstructed history. The true history is that it's not that the land was occupied. The lands were occupied. The Moorish Empire fell, and they were in the process of dividing it amongst the Constantinian nations. Remember, as soon as you go into the world, let's look at this. I want to show you how the misinformation works. Scholars will tell you bluntly, and anthropologists will tell you bluntly, that due to the actions of the Jesuit order, when the Moors were run out of Andalusia, etc., since then that the world has been set back over 500 years. That means we should be over 500 years advanced. That's how much technology that the Jesuit order burned, destroyed, covered up, and etc. And what they have not destroyed is what's metered out piece by piece in degrees in what you call masonry. That's why there's a threat of death for people to reveal it, because they could not rule lest the people believe in them. Because remember, the masses don't deal with facts, they deal with beliefs. But they've been trained to think that beliefs are equal to facts. This is what keeps them under control. That's what militarily called schism. Write that down. Schism, schismata, dogma, dogmata. That's the major instruments that are used to keep the masses under control. And then the minions and familiars are used to orate skillfully using symboliography, whether in jurisprudence or in general linguistics, for control purposes, and that's what you will find in communities of Asiatics who are branded Negro, Black, or Colored. Immediately, a sociologist listens to the language and already know they're under mind control. They don't know because they think it's Negro fad stuff. But an engineer already recognizes the tools because they interjected them. You know, and this is what they do every once in a while, is they'll run tests, even in movies, to see whether you're evolving or whether you're coming out from under the spells. And then they'll inject what is necessary to suppress you, including going in and killing off a few, young women and men and stealing their organs to intimidate the people to suppress them back again. And then they'll get their Negro minions out This is how you can tell the cartel operates. As soon as they do a sacrifice, right? Say, for instance, if they need, say, a heart or some lungs at one of the hospitals, major hospitals on Broad Street in Philly. For some wealthy Europeans, they'll watch some young male or young woman, and then the gangs of New York will be sent out there with a tag, and that person will be tagged, and sooner or later they'll approach them, say they had guns, say they had whatever, and kill them right on the street, and immediately will take their workers. They've been doing it all the time. Now, the people who don't understand how things work, they're trained by their leader guys to start talking colors and racism and stuff that keeps them busy. It's not really what's happening. It's unum sanctum. You understand what I'm saying? It's unum sanctum. And of course, they're going to start marching and praying all around. That keeps them busy. Keeps them out the hair of the rulers. And then they don't have standing in law because 90% of them got that European's name, their state property, and don't even know it. That's why they put, state property closed in the community. They swear that's cool. No, they're telling the absolute truth. That's, because they are state property. Unum sanctum. Now, and this is why it's important for you to know this history, because you can think this out yourself once you know these keys. Like Charlie said, if I could get you all thinking again, you save yourself. This stuff is not complex. Your concepts are all wrong, which he told you. But I'm showing you how and why your concepts are wrong. Are we clear? Now, 1861, the Congress adjourned sine die. Keep this in mind so your concepts will be correct. This was really a coup d'etat. That was really a coup d'etat. Now, keep this in mind. These operations are under the secret Treaty of Rome. That's the support agreement with the Constantinian nations to carry out the Spanish Inquisition. And all politicians know. This is their guide manual. Are we clear? So when you're thinking that these people are operating by mere opinion, that they don't like you for the moment, and you got to convince them to like you, they're operating off of policy. That's why they have Rotarian clubs and stuff, and Lions clubs, little stuff where they send their children early, and then our children don't go to those things because they learn their real history. That's why even when they're dumb, not very bright, you have some Europeans that may be as bright as a 15-watt bulb, and he could run a company, and half the Asiatics in there got college degrees and can't get past a certain level of compensation. And even then, they're going to be taxed out of it anyway. That's how that works. If you really understand it, don't start thinking colors. That game, that race game, don't even feed in that. That's a diversion. It's unum sanctum. If they can get you to start arguing colors and the race game, they know you're under the spell. I know the temptation's there, don't fall for it. It's unum sanctum. All right? This is what has occurred. After the fall of the emirate in Granada, they declared all the descendants of Moors dead at sea until they could prove otherwise. That's the basis upon the admiralty or the pirate law being brought onto the land. The key is for them to keep that a secret while pretending to be legitimate government. That's what is called the shadow government. Are we clear? Now, the coup d'etat, in actuality, the Congress for the United States, this one right here, adjourned sine die, that means they quit, but they kept the seats. As if the government was not overthrown. It was actually a coup d'etat. And they set up for themselves a secret oligarchy. Write that down. Oligarchy. That's with an O. That's what's in operation to this day. This is why the politicians do one thing and say another, and all their legislation is always for the corporate good, not for yours, and you always pay the bills. But I'm going to explain to you how and why the bills are sent to you. Now, keep in mind, the Congress adjourned sine die was really, this is the delusion, although it actually took place, it's a diversion. This is really what took place. But they will never say this in history. They will only say this. All right? Now, right after this, you got to keep this in mind, that Lincoln was a member of the Bar Association, could not hold office. Are we clear? So they ran him for president under this United States in France to do the service contracts for the organic United States Republic, which is the political order on the land between Moors and Constantinians, listed as Muslims and Christians in history book. Because remember, the Europeans hide behind Christianity, they're really Constantinians. All right? All right, now, keep that in mind. So now, this is the beginning in North America where the praetor, or the one holding executive office, is wearing two hats. You got that? Keep this in mind because it's important for you to understand what's happening right now. If you don't get this, say so. Get it clear. So that when you're coming here to the House of Reawakening Minds, that when we give you certain information, you receive it correctly. Are we clear? All right. Now, so he starts operating the contracts, which is what is called the 19 enumerated powers in contract. Now, because he could not run for that the republic, although his great-grandfather was a Moor, he still could not run for a republic because he was a barrister. And this also spurred him to do a couple of law cases making the distinction between Moors, blacks, and Negroes being the same blood, different status. That also got him in trouble because that's against unum sanctum policy. See, because these people are supposed to operate under the brands. Because if they're in their proper person, they can't crib the estate. Because the national wills and treaties, national constitutions and treaties are identical to family wills. They're just for nation states. And they're international in scope. And so, baby girl, you know, she doesn't know, and we're talking truth, this is not scenario, she's heir to the world's largest estate. And then most of our people are poor. But they're the heirs to the world's largest estate. They're the wealthiest people on the planet. And to this very day, except for a handful who've been taken to the mountaintop and shown the secrets, know that truth. Although they have a movie called National Treasure, and they'll tell you that, but they know that most of you, unless you're Masons, don't get it. And yet they're telling you the truth. And people think the gold of Egypt is over there. It's right here in Philadelphia, from Boston to here, in chambers that you can't even see the ends of. You understand what I'm saying to you? Now, and that's fact. That's not untrue. The deal was you're not supposed to ever get it. Now, the other deal is they're trying to kill you off before you wake up in mass and change the paradigm. Do you understand? All right, now, so that's a coup d'etat. They created an oligarchy and kept the seats that they actually abandoned to give the appearance that the shop hadn't closed. Are we clear? Lincoln, recognizing that they were using him to overthrow the republic. Keep that in mind, he was elected under this United States. But he's acting as the executive contractor to service this United States, but also on the seat. That's another reason why John Root Wilkes Booth, that was another reason why they murdered him, because their position was that he prosecuted that war, not actually being president. We're talking real history, you're not talking about what they teach you in school. So if you understand these things, the rest of it you can put together yourself. A lot of things you thought you didn't know, you'd be surprised what you do know. It's just that once you pull the blinders off, you know, how do you say, once you correct one of the dominoes, the other ones that fell kind of get back up right type thing. You know, yeah, I wasn't supposed to fall. You know, it's kind of thing. Anyway, so when Lincoln recognized that they were using him to overthrow the Republic, he bankrupted that United States and France. Are we clear? Not this United States, the Republic, which they're telling you in history. No, he did not. The greenbacks that he so-called printed was to undermine the secret treaty of Verona, controlled by the bench of the Jesuit order called the Bankers in the secret treaty of Verona of London District, which also tagged him for death. This is aside from him winning that case for Sinoque, that a member of Opus Dei that he won that case for. Now, so keep this in mind. So upon recognizing that they were using him to undermine the Republic, he bankrupted this United States. Now they're really pissed. So now that the United States and France is bankrupt, now they're sort of like, their wings have been clipped. Their wings have been clipped. So between 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, the plot goes on to get rid of Lincoln. He knows it, so he does the Emancipation Proclamation. This is where you get the 3630 parallel, where they were setting up, you understand, Lincoln was setting up to give minimally 40 acres and a mule, plus finances and all other structural accoutrement supports to every heir of the estate, which did not include Europeans. It was the people of land, us, branded as Negroes, black, and colored. That's not who they are. That's the tag. Are we clear? All right. Now, they weren't having it. That's why they modified it 3 times before it was released in 65. They murdered Lincoln, and they modified the Emancipation Proclamation, and they did a manumission, not a liberation. And a manumission, whereas all of the estates of all the descendant Moors were converted into the hands of the coup d'etat operators of the oligarchy, who are now pretending to be the Congress, and then delivered to the Lords of London in banknotes. That's the beginning of UST bonds. That's on the stock market today. Give it a mic.
John,
Yeah, go ahead.
the land grants that started.
That's for Europeans.
Yeah, because we know they start giving out tons of land grants and millions of acres.
Consider Whittemore Party, Horace Greeley, the Europeans countering their obligation to take our land, to convert the allodial titles, the Aboriginal, write this down, Aboriginal titles, allodial titles, which were later registered in 1913 after another shell was broken into mortgages and deeds, which did not exist at Morocco prior to 1913.
So one of the biggest ones I'm talking about is the land grant for the railroad.
Yeah, that's the game.
What is it? New York, Albany,
All right, now,
all the way down.
keep that in mind and keep in the gangs from New York. Foot soldiers to steal our land.
When did that start taking place?
That's in early 1800s. I forget the date, so I'm not going to say it. But keep this in mind. Look up gangs of New York. The gangs of New York, to enforce the contracts to steal the land, and starting in New York, etc., and spread out, is now called the police departments. That's where their attitude really comes from, because the people think they're law officers, And they're really a secret gang of New York whose mission is to destroy our families and to destabilize our families. This is why they'll murder families in front of children. People's concepts about what real history is incorrect. If they know who these people really are, they change their frame of thinking. They will do differently, and when they start doing differently, things will change. No one's going to change this but you. Go ahead.
So when they tell our people they need to save their pennies and start a little mom store, this is not how they started. They started with big amounts of land, using animals, started farms,
Yes.
all types of business, and then they look at you and say, look at him. He's on entitlements. He's on welfare.
Yeah.
And he should pick himself up by his bootstraps. And they never burned the midnight oil. They never were that smart.
Exactly. They stole your estates. Now, keep this in mind. This is very important, you all. Keep this in mind. It's very important. Write this down because we got a collage war here going on. So it refuses to be really. I think it belongs to the union, local union. Yeah. Anyway, so the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, which they will reconstruct in history and tell you is the Freedmen's Bureau. That's the official name. Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. That's the proper name. And so when you're looking at these grants and stuff like that, so you see them trying to undermine the 3630 parallel where the land was supposed to be returned to the heirs. And we're supposed to fix this thing. All right? Meanwhile, understand government is really broken, but the masses don't know this. They're just looking at these little skirmishes going on, civil war and everything, don't understand that whole foundation is to undermine the republic. Give them the mic, you all.
I have a question. Go ahead. Islam.
Islam. Good.
Okay, I have a question. The assassination with Lincoln, Charles Sumner's, Forrest Gurley, and Patty Stevens.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can bring a little more clarity to me for that? The reason why I'm asking because I actually go to Daddy Stevens in Lancaster territory.
Yeah, well, don't look at, because the point of exposing that is not so much to do the detail, is to do the aggregate history so that people don't get confused. The motive of operation, modus operandi. Like we can get into the inner workings of the parties and then some of them being members of the Whitmore, etc., and their individual activities, but that would be divisive. When I say divisive, it would divert people from what they need to understand. What they need to understand is the core of the real history that they have not been told, and then even some of the things that they study with them, they can see it differently. As a matter of fact, they can probably have more insight into the activities that they may not clearly understand prior, now even better. Even absolutely better. But the core of why I'm saying this because the people need to understand the shell corporations that were created to steal the birthright. That's what's important. That's what's important. And you've got to kind of stay there so you don't get distracted. Because that's your canvas. Come from that canvas and examine everything else. Because that information is only given in the highest degrees of masonry. The highest degrees. They take thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of notes for it, and then they can't talk. And you're giving it free. And it's not allegorical, straight out, on the square. Understand? But it's important for you to understand this because you're the heir. That's the point. It's not just a point of interest. You're the heir. And you don't think like heirs. Are we clear? And they don't want you to think like heirs. Neither do your black leaders want you to think like heirs, because they got a skull and bones agreement secretly under the Treaty of Verona. You know, and they got these people thinking, oh, we don't pray to the lords. They're talking about the lords of London, and these people who don't know history think they're talking about Jesus in the sky and stuff. They really do. We're talking about adults, really believe that. And actually think that Jesus got a bank account, Chase Manhattan, and Reverend Jones is giving Jesus his hair. They really, really believe that. And they promote that to their babies too, destroying their lives too. Anyway, back to point. Lincoln bankrupted this United States. Got it? Vendetta, Civil War, the expansion of it, and the Reconstruction period is to rewrite the history. Hide the coup d'etat. That one was bankrupted, so they created another shell United States. Are we clear? This one's organic. This is the service contract in France that was bankrupted by Lincoln. Same name, different structure, same name. All right? This is Morocco under occupation and in treaty agreement. Legitimate. Started out legitimate, was bankrupted because of bankers trying to use this platform to undermine this republic, and Lincoln bankrupted it. Got that? So they set up a United States and try to convert this debt of this bankruptcy onto this United States, the organic. That's what the Pope was talking about when he said the criminal act that took place 150 years ago. They're talking about the 14th Amendment, persons given the quality of person, corporations, given the quality of persons to convert the estate of the heirs to say that the debt of this corporate entity in France is actually their debt. This is where they developed the term that you hear, the national debt. And it was, they converted the debt on the nationals of the land. But it's really a private corporate debt in France. A dead corporation that Lincoln killed. You got this? All right, now. So they had to create another United States. So this goes on up until roughly 1910, 1912. In 1913, then Noble Ali came along and set up Old Canaanite Temple for the correction and enforcement of the Constitution contract, which is a national will for the restoration of the estate of the true heirs, i.e. the treaty, Constitution, Article 6. But he has to train the heirs who don't know government, they don't know their bloodline, they don't know the history of the human family, they think human beings are crayons, they think they're monkeys, they don't know that Negro means monkey, and they promote it proudly. They think colored means honorable Afrocentricity, and it means artificial person, because they don't read law books, because they can't read anyway. So we're dealing with the John D. Rockefeller operations. And then their Negro marching leaders are interjected, claiming to love Jesusness, and they really have an oath with the popes of Rome, that's Secret Treaty of Rome, Article 3. Write that down so you can do research yourself. Secret Treaty of Rome, Article 3, that's the true secret oath of all your clergy. All your clergy, that's why they, without conscience, always ask the people buy them airplanes and stuff. Jesus needs to see me next week, I gotta fly to Arizona. I need assisted man airplane and stuff. And people get it for them too. Sell their houses that should be going to their children and all that kind of stuff. They're doing it for the Lord of London. They are. I mean, it's a shame because scholars know this stuff. This stuff ain't even that deeply buried. They just know these people are scared of books now. Where that used to be part of our culture, now they're scared of books. You just go past the second page, it's the devil. They start that stuff. Romans are safe. Show them anything they don't understand.
Expect that role.
That's where they go. Rome is safe, and this is what they're counting on. All right, so this is the truth, and it works. I mean, why fix what ain't broken? Now, so this was in operation, so keep this in mind. So 1913, Noble Drew Ali set up the old Canaanite temple, write that down, for the restoration of the estate to the proper heirs who were not in their proper person. So you can understand the difficulty he had to restructure or to set this temple up, this old Canaanite temple, to teach the people that's totally disconnected from their consciousness, bloodline, and anything. Thinking human beings are crayons and everything but true. Thinking they're Christians. Oh, it's interesting. Anyway.
What?
Titter.
I see you, girl. Ah. She ready to sing too. Anyway, so anybody, all professors of all universities know this information. All heads of all industry know this information. All members of Knights Templar know this information. All members of Kaikos, Ku Klux Klan, the Grand Dragons know this information. All your high degree reverends know this information. Imams, all PhDs, all the monastics. The only ones that don't know it, it's easy to say. All you go, Negro, black, colored, West Indians, Latinos, and whatever they are this week, they're usually the ones that don't know. And they're the heirs to the world's largest estate. So that paradigm is being maintained at all costs. And what is known as the unum sanctum policy transfers today in what they call the Wolfowitz, I think it's Wolfowitz policy, or the Wolfowitz doctrine. And this is where they will preemptively go murdering people, killing women and children around the world to make sure that no nation ever competes with the United States corporation company that they're misrepresenting as a country. Are we clear? Are we clear? United States corporation company bankrupted that they're pretending is United States Republic, Republica e Almoricanas, which is under occupation. And they converted their debt to the heirs who don't know that that's the politics. Are we clear? In a nutshell, the great Masonic secret. That's it. The Great Seal. All right? Got that? So 1913, Noble Drew Ali set up the old Canaanite temple for the restoration of the estate and the enforcement of the Constitution. And you will find inferences of that, including the 14th Amendment, 14th, 15th Amendment fraud, in what is called the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. Write that down so you can do your research. So, the countermeasure, this is a countermeasure, so this is another shell. So when Drew Ali established the old Canaanite Temple in 1913, Woodrow Wilson met with the Jesuit order, representatives from the Jesuit order, banks, London bankers, under the secret Treaty of Verona of Jekyll Island, Georgia, 1913, and set up the Federal Reserve and the Inquisition Revenue Services, restyled as Internal Revenue Services. That's the next United States shell. It's really a United States shell. Now, they register in Puerto Rico and Guam. It's not on the land. Are we clear? You got that? All right, now. So this goes on, and during the run of Noble Drew Ali, he's a problem because people are learning, but they're still half asleep. And then it's infiltrated by Calvin Coolidge and J. Edgar Hoover under COINTELPRO operations. Write down COINTELPRO operations. And this is what that area is called the Great Sellout. And so between 1930 and 1934, with the payoff and the infiltration, you've got your major so-called black organizations spring up that's going to sell out. Get a brother Mike. Who got the mic?
Islam.
Oh, wait.
If I'm correct, I'm hearing you correct. You said that the internal revenues?
It's really the Inquisition Revenue Services. See, this is what I'm telling you so that you can use your divine reasoning. If you know this history, you know the corporate entities, even though they changed the names. They changed the names, but the executor's chamber was not closed.
So they're registered, that particular entity, you're saying that it's registered in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, it's really the United States. The Federal Reserve and the IRS are really a service name for United States Corporation Company. That's another shell. Remember I told you before we started, these are shells to convert this debt from 1754 to the heirs. All these shells is for that purpose. In other words,
I'm just curious because I thought most of your business was registered, your corporations were registered in Delaware.
why do you think they call us the first state? And all the Negro bonds are registered here. But it's on paper, it's not the land.
I'm with you, man.
It's the see, George Washington. They converted your estates into the states. That's what they are. See, in other words, this is why I qualify. I'm trying to get you focused. That's why I don't want to get off. Because you got to understand the motive. You got to understand the real history to tell you everything else that you don't know. In other words, it's impossible to tell you in a couple of lectures your real history. Give you primal keys so that you yourself can go into your divine reasoning, because the cure must come from you. That's why Yeshua said, physician, heal yourself. Get up from the rich man's feet. What he's really telling you, you're the heirs to the world's largest estate. You're all begging because you don't know yourself. And it's not that the rescue didn't come, but the rescue came, but you rejected him. You rejected him and followed after the Romans that you knew nothing of, and here you are. This is what your problem is. And so you got to know what you're dealing with. Because once these keys are released to you, you will have memory that you don't know you have, because you're really not one person. Your idea is that you're one person. But you contain the cell memories of your parents before you. You just don't know how to tap it. You understand? And since they don't really teach people true religion, they don't have the skills. The masses don't get religion, they get dogmata. That's why they're impotent. You understand? And that's not an insult on people that sincerely go around marching and praying. I'm not knocking. They don't know. They don't get religion. They get dogmata, mind control. This is why the European states in power. They pray all day while they're getting lynched. Let me get the last word out. Amen. Oh, didn't he just show it? Yeah, it must be a God, because he got that out before he choked. The hell? That's like calling a rabbit foot lucky. Well, if it was so lucky, the rabbit still have his foot. You know what I mean? We don't get it. Our concepts are extremely wrong on a lot of fronts. Now keep this in mind. What's true? So now look at these shells. So now, Woodrow Wilson, J. Edgar Hoover set up COINTELPRO operations to undermine the Moorish movement. That's called the Great Sellout. That's called the Great Sellout. A little bit of that information, for those who don't know, is part of what Malcolm found out, and also where they couldn't buy him off. This is also part of what got him murdered, because they couldn't buy him off. He got some of the added information, but it didn't come from the sources. And so he became a threat. And so they tried to buy him off, and Betty told him to take the finance like everybody else did, but he didn't. And so they murdered him. Likewise with Khalid, a few years ago, when he started telling these people they're Moors, then all of a sudden he had a seizure in a hotel. Because this is the world's largest, you gotta understand the motive, this is the world's largest estate. And many of these black organizations were set up to divert you. Because it gives the appearance like they love you, like they care, but they're really keeping you in the dead status. Keep in mind, so keep this in mind in heirship, in estate. In estate law, this is universal. You must be in your proper person to have claim to an inheritance. Are we clear? You must be in your proper person to have lawful claim to an inheritance, no matter how many generations. You must understand, knowing this is part of the motive as why the Europeans put their family names on the Moors who they released out of the Bureau of Refugees. Are we clear? This is why this is the service, the legal service function of the brand systems called nom de guerre. Negro, black, colored, all that stuff. And Smith, Jones, and Johnson. What their function is, not whether they're right or wrong, what their function is. It has to do with descendability. Write that down so you don't forget it. We're talking right now about descendability. And the comptrollers trying to keep the heirs from being descendable by dead status. This is where the term civil liter mortuus has its function in the so-called black community. Are we clear? Now, if you understand you're talking about descendability, you're talking about estates, and you're talking about a massive debt of a corporation registered in France that Lincoln killed, called the United States, that they converted on the descendants of the Moors under so-called African American. That is the basis of all your economic politics right now in the entire Western world. Are we clear? It's important that you don't know this. Are we clear? Now, the Daughters of the American Revolution, anybody that comes here anywhere around the world and they use the manual of it's called the DAR manual, D-A-R, D.A.R. That manual is the fundamental manual that is a guide point of teaching the fundamental science of government, etc., from the imperial divan that's adopted with different names, and it's called the Citizenship Manual. And anyone that gets citizenship must take those tests to qualify because it deals with both culture and constitutional law. Now you understand why Drew Ali said, help me in my great missionary work to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States of America. It's an equity contract. That's why they don't teach constitutional law in schools no more. Do you understand? It's a motive because you're talking an heirship. All right? All right, now, so Noble Ali set up the Old Canaanite Temple in 1913. Woodrow Wilson makes a counter move and sets up the IRS and the Internal Revenue Service and Federal Reserve in 1913. See the correlation? So now the Moorish Science Temple is running. People are developing. You got infiltration, but the people are developing. They get rid of Noble Ali in 1929. The year before, 1929, because of infiltration, remember in 1925, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, called the Moorish Temple of Science, was registered as a civic organization to teach government. it was predisposed with Marcus Mosiah Garvey teaching government structure. And Drew Ali taught nationality for the restoration of the state. So they got rid of Garvey, and then they got rid of Drew Ali. You understand? 1929. 4 years later, 1933, that United States corporation collapsed. Are we clear? So they created, I ain't got another cup. Then they created another United States shell to continue the fraud. Are we clear? May the 2nd of 2016, that United States shell in Puerto Rico went bankrupt. So those of you who heard the news and they told you Puerto Rico went bankrupt May the 2nd, no, they're talking about that United States shell. Now, the Manchurians and the Russians said to them, no more shells. Are we getting it? No more shells. Now, this is when they went into what they call QE mode. Duplicating and duplicating day and night all financial instruments over and over again, counterfeit on top of counterfeit, on top of counterfeit, on top of counterfeit, to break the treasuries of all the nation states to force them to submit, because they're interfering with their new shell operation. This is what they're calling reset. Reset, which means go back. Think reversion of a state, reset. That's the politics you're dealing with right now. Obama, in truth, contrary to what most of you know, resigned office last fall. He's speaking publicly, but he resigned office last fall. That's why when you saw him doing that dinner, and he had the mic, he was getting down. Obama! Out. He's really talking sonically. For those who, do you notice that earlier in the speech he talked about, you know, I don't want to misquote him, but he made reference to the Republic, the end of the Republic. The Europeans was pissed. He's talking about the shells. But he's really saying the end of the democracy. But the people who know the real history, what we're telling you, is why the Europeans were upset with Obama. And for those, and don't take it personal, and don't look at it from a belief perspective, because it ain't really like that. We're talking politics. This is why no matter what Obama says or do, they'll say, I don't care how many times you go to church, you Muslim. Because they know he knows the real history. Because it ain't about belief, it's really talking about the politics and the heirship. Are we clear? Obama.
Out.
That's what he's talking about. So, understand this, that the unum sanctum is the policy that the Europeans are operating on that you've been calling racism and prejudice. Your Negro leader guys ain't going to talk that because they're getting paid off with a 501c3 skull and bones agreement. You understand? And that ain't Jesus' hand. People are waking up, so they start as 501c4, another deceptive game that they're doing right now. Now keep in mind too, that this thing ultimately will be fixed when the sisters really wake up and they get tired of this crap and stop delivering their babies to the vampires who they think love Jesusness. But anyway, so unum sanctum. Now, this is these, and they use the Bible, except you see where they have Peter right there. See Peter? Huh? All right. The Christ degree, the Vicar of Christ degree, which means the substitute for the activation of the pineal gland. You need to know what these words really mean. Christ is actually Krishna, or the activation of the pineal gland, or what you call eye corpse. Are we clear? Not a person that you think. Peter is really Ptah. the proper name of Egypt. And Ptah, on the ancient planet, is the energy that is relegated to the creator or the maker of gods and men. So he's claiming the power of Ptah. That's why they wear the fish head in the constellation of Pisces. Do you understand? And it's called what? A mitre with an R-E, a square. Do you understand? And then they wear the red shoes of the royal Ptah. Are we clear? So he's a substitute. This is why everything in masonry is referred to as substitute. Substitute. Well, the substitute, who's the real? You are. Their whole deal is trading places. So everything they do is to demonstrate the trading of places and to keep that paradigm going on. Do you understand? All of their 501c3, 501c4 agreement, marching, praying, Negro, civil rights leader guys are paid off to keep that paradigm going, to keep you from this knowledge. But they seem like they love Jesus, don't they? Ain't no J in Hebrew. Anyway, so you want to look at this in your spare time, and I just wanted to go over this so that you could understand the politics, because I know that many of you don't have this information, or not that you don't have it, but your concepts are wrong. All right? And this is redundant, but let's go to the Pope's letter to Obama, and keep in mind, those of you that I keep telling to look over this instrument over and over again. This is from the Pope Francis. There's his employee. Yeah, Pope Francis and his employee. And so that people who don't understand are not offended when they understand that he's the Pope's employee. You understand? That's the Pope's employee. But let's go down to him explaining so that you'll understand the shell corporations. Now somebody get the mic. Somebody get the mic. Preferably a sister to read this. All right. Now, read from that point. Read from that point, and I'm going to go out. Read. Nope. Turn it on.
All efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union, without exception. The Grand Army of the Republic is uniquely enabled by these orders to operate on the land of the 50 organic states for the purpose of securing the lives and properties of the American states and the American states' citizens.
Real quick, stop right there. Now, if you can read, you understand that he's actually telling you history about the shells without discussing them directly. But yet he's discussing them directly, but most people who don't have what you call history degrees wouldn't even know what they're reading, that he's telling you what I just put on the board. Are we clear? Go ahead.
The Grand Army of the Republic is not a foreign army. It is composed primarily of American state citizens.
Notice the words and the phrases that he's using. All right, now, go ahead.
If required to take field position, the local commanders shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reasons for the presence on American state soil.
Notice how he's making the distinction between the corporation and the land? All right, go ahead.
To ensure a prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread understanding of the usurp.
Write that down, usurpation, so you can understand what he's talking about, and frauds.
And acts of frauds which have led to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligations to act in favor of the organic states of the Union.
Notice he's saying organic states, so now you must, when he says organic states, you're supposed to be able, now it would be one more shell up here, and you, being educated, are supposed to be naming which one it is. And if you fail to pick this one out, you're incompetent. Do you understand? And all the rest of them are United States too now. All right, continue, sister. Go ahead.
The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Orders 100 known as the
Libra Code.
Libra Code.
Write that down, Libra Code, y'all. So these are things you need in your literature. Libra Code. Because these things are operating and you need to know. So if you're doing anything, you need to know what you're functioning with and functioning under, or what they're functioning against you. Are we clear? All right, read it, says.
Extant from the pen of the last Republic President, Abraham Lincoln.
So he's telling you that's the last Republic president. So as you know, and we don't have to tell you, that most people are not aware that Lincoln was the last president. Are we clear? That's to demonstrate to you how much you don't know about history. Are we clear? And why a lot of people get confused what the politicians are doing in their corruption, and it's always costing the people. Now you know why. Because they are what? They set up a secret oligarchy, and they're raping you ever since. That's where your poverty is. Are we clear, you all? You're not poor, you're poor artificially. Under frauds and semantic deceit. That's why they don't teach you law and history. All right, continue to read, sister.
No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as a president of the United States Corporation, nor as
He just named two shells right there. You must know the distinction, and you must be able to follow this. Are we clear? Go ahead.
Nor as the President of the United States of America, minor,
Emphasize. Now it's another shell. Continue.
are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Hagum, or any original.
Ordinary. Ordinary is a cover word for people in both military and political office service with what you call less titles than the executive. Collectively, they're ordinaries. All right? So get familiar with these terms because you need to know them when you're dealing with these people, particularly these administrators who are pretending to be judges. They're an ordinary. So if you're going to start trying to claim your estate, your language better match what you think you know. Because as soon as you demonstrate that you don't know, they're going to treat you as an incompetent. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you don't know your history and you're an heir. And since we're talking heirship, an incompetent heir can be declared not worthy or mature. That's another reason why they apply the word minority, or people think it means Afrocentric numbers. It really means grown people that wear dependents. No, really, it's a legal status. Then it means they're not descendable in law. But they don't know that because they don't read law books. So their leader guys are trained to make them think it means Afrocentricity. by numbers. You know, it means incompetent. All right, continue read, sis.
All plainly stated grants of contractual authority evidenced in the Constitution for the United States of America.
Now, there you go. Now, which one is that, y'all, on the table?
The first,
It is not.
no, the,
It's the first one in the front. Yes, you're right, but name the position. That's the organic United States, the agreement between the Moors and the Europeans, i.e. the deists, not Christians, who were called Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Madison, all of that crew. Do you understand? That's what Obama was talking about when he went to the Gupta. All right? Now continue to read.
remains in place, subject to the good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties.
So now you can see the Constitution for the United States of America remain in place subject to good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. Why do you think they don't talk about the treaties when they're teaching our people? Because the Constitution and treaty are to be looked at as one document. Because they're national wills. Now, read this, and this is important. Go ahead.
Mr. Obama is the president of a governmental services corporation.
See the shell?
Under contract to provide
Stipulated services to the organic. Now that's the small u. That's the agreement between the Moors and the Constantinians, i.e. the Union. Now you understand when they say Lincoln was trying to save the Union and bankrupted? No, he bankrupted that corporate entity. And then they killed him, they covered up, and then said that he bankrupted the United States organic. He did not. They secretly, the Congress set up an oligarchy and converted the debt to that bankrupt corporation onto the organic, and we, being the heirs, are backing all U.S. T-bonds that's been on the stock market for all these years. Go ahead, continue.
Services to the organic states and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor.
Now see how that's emphasized?
Yeah.
So now you all understand that the United States is actually a foreign corporation and is not a country. What happens if you think it's a country, you teach your children it's a country? You just gave up their birthright. You understand?
Right.
Go ahead. Go down.
What was the meaning of bankruptcy? Was it the war, the Civil War that he?
That's the Civil War was set up to design the fraud that was to take place thereafter.
Well, what was his meaning of bankrupting that corporation?
He bankrupted that corporation because they were using him to undermine the republic. See this, keep this in mind. He ran for president of the corporate entity.
Yeah.
The misinformation is that he ran for president of the United States organic. He couldn't because he's a member of the bar. That's why I told you that.
Yeah.
But he was trying to protect it because they were trying to undermine it under the secret treaty of Verona. We're talking the real history, not what the masses get. Now, so he's operating the United States Republic to preserve it, although he's not officially in that office. But he has the service contracts. Now, so these shells continue just as they were. These shells still continue. This is why the Pope is out in the history. So there is no lawful precedence after Lincoln. Everybody is still what? Dealing with that debt of that corporate entity that they've been falsely, under fraud, converting on us. And this has been the whole politics. The whole modern politics is this BS here. Well, let's go down here. And read these last two, and then we're going to open the floor. and then just talk. Because I want your concepts to be correct. You all can read the rest of us in your spare time. All right, go ahead. Here we go. We know that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago. So you got to know what he's talking about, right? So if you don't know history, you don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about the creation of these shells. That's the foundation of the criminal acts, you see, which resulted in the commercial enslavement. This is where all the commerce, the humans was put in a commercial venue. What humans? Was it Indians? White Christian Americans and all this sort of stuff? No. We know that the current circumstances in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of who? African Americans. Who were the African Americans? They were Moorish Americans, the treaty. See what Obama was telling you? Who were summarily claimed as chattels backing U.S. government debt in wake of the Civil War. Despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens. So you see how these distinctions must be made? That we are dealing with today. So all the stuff, that problems that you're dealing with today, this is where its root is. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments: Civil Orders Anna Maria Wilhelmina, Anna Sophia Ritzinger von Ritzenstein von Lettenberg, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis, documents related. The United States isn't a country, it's a corporation, the hidden Vatican Crown Empire. Very simple. So the Pope's telling you the history since your black leaders won't, and since half these people didn't believe no duality, now the Pope's telling you. And you're the heirs to the world's largest estate. So all your problems that you're dealing with, economic, etc., are artificial. Not only are now, always have been. So, this whole paradigm has been from that 1754, the United States Corporation Company, that Lincoln bankrupted. It has been a rogue Congress operating a secret oligarchy to continuously convert that debt from 1754 corporation that Lincoln bankrupted onto the heirs of the estate, African Americans, i.e. descendants of the Moors, Moorish Americans. Now you understand the Moorish Divine National Movement? Huh? And if you don't understand that history, you don't understand why he did what he did. And then you also don't understand why you have constant sellout and people trying to suppress this information or misrepresent it. Because it means institutions will literally collapse. Literally. Now you understand King Albert, Rex 84, etc. And the German warfare they're doing in Atlanta, putting all these bioweapons out here, and the GMOs trying to kill the people. Chemtrails and all that stuff. House Joint Resolution 2847, on the name of employment, stealing all your savings accounts to break your families. I'm clear. Now, Dred Scott case, as you all know, most important slave case ever to come before the Supreme Courts of the United States. And now you understand the status issue. Are we clear? Proper person. All right? So, as we told you, 10, 15 years ago, when you understand this information, you understand why I did that lecture in Connecticut about 10 years ago, the danger of the UCCs. Not that they don't have representation of what they mean, but if you don't know this history and you start dealing with them, you're walking in dangerous work. Because when you complete the cycle, they're not going to honor it anyway. Because to honor it, they got to talk about the real heir. You see? And people think, oh, debtor, creditor. You see, debtor, creditor? What debtor? That corporate entity in France, 1754, that Lincoln bankrupted. Not you. Now you see when Dwali says to you, children, you don't know, you're just rich. Now you understand where that statement comes from? Now you see why the black leaders keep misrepresenting Milton Dwali or trying to minimize them? Because they're beneficiaries of the secret treaty of Rome, i.e. sellouts, Judases. Now you don't have to accept that. Know the history and you can tell who's who by their actions. They'll tell you. But if you don't know this history, you get emotionally tied. You're not looking at the pieces. Once you understand this history, anybody, Europeans or Asiatics, will tell you who they are and whether they're working for Rome or really working for the heirs of the estate. It is that simple. And to that degree, it's them and us. However, for the Europeans that want to maintain the honor of the Republic, someone want it back now. But that's it. Everybody else got to go. And since you all haven't done your job, that's why the Manchurians are stepping in. And Dwali told you that your brother's going to have to come from the east of Egypt. Because they already knew that you'd be compromised. Go ahead.
Mike.
I have a question with. Can someone correct their status if they're still claiming to be Negro, colored, and black?
Answer your own question.
I don't think so.
Can you sell a pit bull if you keep on calling him an elephant? How many system?
Yeah, okay.
Can you still call peanut butter when you collected it off the lawn? Nope.
No.
I mean, it's very simple. And see, the deal of it is we have to get out of our mind the juvenile gray areas by simply dealing with the facts. Don't interject your biases.
I was shared this information with the old PPT. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Go ahead.
One People's Public Trust.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, well, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
what I've learned here, this is really non-effect with all the UCCs and all that.
Yes.
You have to, as you said, you have to know the history.
Yes.
Because you would have to deal with, because they have like a courtesy notice that you send out to your, you know, to the people that you're dealing with and stuff, you know.
Let me suggest this to you. The history I just gave you tells you you have an issue of heirship.
Right.
You have a lot of people making claims. It doesn't mean they don't understand process. Doesn't mean they don't understand estate law and trust law. They're not the heirs. What you have is Europeans, because the middle class is being dissolved, trying to preserve their stuff that don't belong to them. That's why I read the Post letter, so you can understand. Who are the real heirs? African Americans. There ain't no Indians, because this ain't India. There ain't no white Americans and Christian, white sovereign, all these other things that they've been saying. What you see is Europeans telling part of the history to claim their estates because they're being dissolved. They've been thrown under the bus. So they're trying to claim the protections of constitutions and treaties that they themselves stepped off of for benefit. This is what created the middle class. It's our estate. So they're trying to make a claim. If they're not Moorish American, they ain't got no claim.
Well,
No, wait, hold on. I'm not talking about process. I'm talking about you're given this history so that you can take instruments like that are diversions, learn from them, but at the same time don't be fooled by them. Are they flying their colors?
No.
They talking about the Moorish Empire?
No.
They talking about the treaty and constitution?
No. They're just talking about the slavery system.
Good, interesting. Well, we're talking about airship.
Yeah.
And if you're in air, you ain't got no claim. Because them bonds that back the U.S. government debt since the Civil War is on us, not anybody else. So ain't nobody got no claim but us. It don't mean they can't tell you something about history, but they ain't the sovereign. And they're not the heir. See, this is what's happening. Stuff's getting raggedy, and everybody's trying to get back to the Republic without telling this real history. That's why I'm giving you the history so that you don't get twisted. You'll have somebody named Rhinoceros and a whole bunch of other guys starting a whole bunch of states and getting you to try to sign on to some trust and some. No, this is the trust. It's very clearly where it is. Now you understand what Novadrali did. That's why I said if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. Because it's an heirship issue. Now they can get you diverted into arguing other stuff. Sound beautiful, that buys them time. This is why I'm giving you the history so that when you get stuff like this, you can learn from it, but be able to decipher it. Because the European is going to tell you the truth, some of it. But you've got to figure the rest out because you're the heir. See, this was everybody, look at this. When Hitler nationalized Germany, there was a lot of people in Germany during that time talking about, hey, that's my stuff. I got this factory. Yeah, this railroad track is mine. And I got this gold and stuff. He said, yeah, you German? Well, I got a religion. Fine. Go home to your mama. Party's over. You don't have to go home. But you're leaving here. Here's some frog feet, some logs along the shore, some ships, some kites, some balloons. Start blowing them up. I hope they rise. But you're leaving here. And anybody who don't leave here, you're invited to a barbecue. Translation, who's your mama? You're talking airship. And the reason why we're giving you this history is to put you in the right frame of mind. If the people knew the history, half these questions wouldn't exist. You know why the questions exist? We doubt ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but it means we have purging to do. The issue is for to make sure she doesn't grow up with the contamination in the first place. Do you understand? If she doesn't grow up with contamination, do you know how many of her cells will activate naturally? Naturally. Her intelligence will rise so fast that it'll probably scare her mother. The only reason why these people aren't operating spiritually the way they should is because of their belief systems, which is mind control. In other words, it's injected into them to suppress their cellular memory that's given to them by their mother. The same way that she gives them food through the placenta, she codes them memories of generations minimally 7 back. Minimally. Religion is the cultural science to teach you how to tap it. And we ain't talking about doing salami bologna type stuff that they be telling you. We're talking about actual disciplines. Those disciplines are taught, some of them, in the highest degrees of masonry. That's why they keep telling people it's spooky, so it keep you from it. And even in those clubs, they're corrupted. you know, to keep you guys paying bills, the bill payers, because they get a substitute. And it's also why so-called black Masons are called clandestine. After getting this information, they still claim to be black, they're clandestine. And so the Romans are saying, he burn all their charters, they're phonies. They get, first lesson, they get a roof to Moabites and they still claim to be black, they're clandestine. But you usually hear the story of them wanting to burn Prince Hall's charters as a racist type thing, when really they claim to be black. They're clandestine. For real. Because ain't nobody heirs here but the Moors. They're the heirs. They're the people of the land. They're the nationals who have been overthrown and enslaved by European colonial operations. And then the payoffs are to tell the people they just don't like your color, and so to divert them from the heirship. So they start arguing, light skin, orange skin, green guy. And what we gotta do is make them know that we somebody, and all that kind of stuff. It sounds all good. It's BS diversion. And that same guy that's saying them kind of statements in secret got a fez. Don't know who the Moors are though. Yeah, right. That's for people who are not scholars. Scholars know all these leaders are minions. All of them. Not some of them. All of them. Because this knowledge is known by all scholars. All. Ain't got nothing to do with what they believe, their religions. This is universal knowledge. It's been by design kept from those who are tagged Negro, black, colored, Latino, whatever they call them this week, who are the direct heirs of the Moors. And that's your whole politics. That's it. And that's the guide point, the unum sanctum policy. And you're declared dead at sea until proven otherwise. That's why the first thing you do is declare your nationality, and you fly your colors because you're not an abandoned vessel. Are we clear? All right, any more questions? So when you go ahead. Were you going to ask a question?
No, well, I guess I should, what's coming up, I guess I need to speak about.
So when you're doing rich, you all, when you're doing rich or anything like that, you must do those rich with this consciousness. And this is also, now, Diet, remember, and this is back to concepts, right? And this is back to concepts as to why. Now see, like if you're going to use any instruments of theirs, like a quick claim deed or something like that, you convert it back to allodial, aboriginal, paramount, clear, perfect title of conveyance. And this would go in harmony with reversioner, you know, the article reversioner, to perfect your concept. And keep in mind, until 1913, see this allodial, aboriginal, paramount title? Now this is D's, this is D's, what she was putting on her stuff. It's an international private trust, Naval as amended curative affidavit, notices of Ruth and Moabitess Trust. Now that's the name of her trust, etc. But this is where you would use the nom de guerre, that would be the nom de guerre, that they would use in all capital letters to attach to the Sister QV Trust Act that they did in '66, which is in the series of the church bulls, and that's what they created the 14th Amendment off of, or keep in mind. See, so essentially, you're claiming competency as an heir. See, because in other words, so you're not dead at sea. That's another reason why you're flying your colors. I just want to show you that real quick in concept. See, so you're really you're taking claim on the interest. See, the interest of that's the sister Q. See the sister Q? And you notice that the Pope did the uppercase and small case too, because he's telling you what's up. But you're supposed to already have known that. You know, but I'm just telling you that to show you where the Pope is now just backing up everything Charlie's been telling you from day one. Because it's late in the game, but this is why, you know, some of the Europeans, that's why they blocked all the highways when he came here to Philadelphia. And he came to Philadelphia, Shaka Moxon, because that's where they took your birthright. And that's what the Mummers Parade is, celebration of your fall. So these are little things for you to know, so that you can look at things totally differently. And keep in mind that George and the leaders of the Whigamo Party, etc., were in communication constantly with the setup of the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia. And so, when you see this last part, get the concept. See that, the notice of illusionary to foreign corporate entities, personnel, agencies, and persons, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, County of Philadelphia, and the Associated Democracy States of. You see, so she's addressing them because they're acting as what? Trustees. But they're actually board of directors for the corporate entities. You see? So let me pull this up so that you all can see. All right, read it, y'all. Go ahead, sis. Read it. You got the mic?
Start the Commonwealth.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, County of Philadelphia, and the Associated Democracy State of are foreign corporations in
Corporate entities,
corporate entities and
franchisees. You need to be here? All right. Can somebody sit on your side? I'd rather sisters read it, because when the sisters get it, everybody else will get it.
Are foreign corporate entities and franchises of the United States Corporation Company, a colorable, converted, and foreign entity whose sovereign capacity has been executed and dissolved since March 9, 1933. Reference Emergency Banking Relief Act.
Now that's the one that when Franklin Delano Roosevelt at 33, that's when they converted the birth certificates into bank bonds because they didn't have enough of the marriage certificates that was original bank bonds, etc., and the other instruments. And so that's what that's making reference to. All right. Now that the United States just went bankrupt May the 2nd of this year. But let's just keep you in concept. Continue.
Therefore, all public notaries are mere avowals to the superior status of the Moorish.
Hold on.
Moorish American nationals, heirs and natural people of the land herein attribute. This informational intercourse should not be deemed as nor assumed as a reflection of nor a notion of subjective or an admittance to the foreign, private, or profit jurisdiction of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in the matters of jurisdiction, all personal
In personam,
impersonal,
yeah, subject matter.
subject matter and territorial jurisdictions and reversions of the states are retained with the Moroccan Empire, Moorish national, public, federal government, and its nationals.
All right, so that's a nationalization statement at the same time, and an heirship. Now, and I'm showing you that to demonstrate to you, and it doesn't have to be exactly like that, but your concepts must be right in that order. If your concepts are not in that order, and you're dealing with anything with that European, he knows that you don't understand the real history, and you will be declared an incompetent heir. And they're doing it constantly. They won't say it to you, they will show it in their actions. So when they ask you what you want them to do, you're supposed to talk about their estate. And if you don't talk about their estate, they know that you're property. Do you understand? Because I know once in a while when you all are in issues before the Europeans, what they're calling courts or tribunals, according to how you're coming at them, and they'll ask you what you want them to do. That's what they're waiting for you to come up with. And if you don't go there, you're back in the Negro codes. By choice. Of course, you don't know that that's what's happening, but that's exactly what's happening. Are we clear?
So is
Now-
that like when those persons came before Hillary Clinton when they were, going through this Black Lives Matter? And
Well,
she
that was
asked
set up
what
by
did they
George
want?
Soros as a diversion. As a diversion. How many of you got the excerpt, the D and Heru produced? They did an excerpt of the lesson book 14A1 so that people have some tools to battle with.
I'm gonna go towards getting it. Pass on. Brother D.
Is that a download?
Huh?
A download?
What's that?
What you
Is
talking
that
about?
on RV base? Is that on the RV base site? Is it
Um,
download?
That one, no. We did. Speak up. They're looking for you to say something.
Come on, what's going on? What do you have?
Give me a number and I don't know what they want me to decide on what
And
they
then the sandwiches.
I'm just saying, man, you just threw me under the bus.
But anyway, this is part of it that they published. The Clearfield Trust Company, for those of you who are familiar with this, if you have any family members that have problems with foreclosure in the house, etc., something like that, use Clearfield Trust Company argument, because they're not telling you, but this Clearfield Trust case that is now stare decisis is based in that history I just gave you. And what the trust company was saying, you ain't pulling that neighbor code on us. And on principle, we're going to battle, even though the check was for something like 26 notes that was bounced, that was forged. And that's the basis of the Clearfield Doctrine. So you understand why certain things we give you, why we give them to you to help you in whatever you're doing. Because this is it's behind it. They're not telling you, they're telling you, but if you don't know history, you don't know what you're looking at. Are we clear? Here you go, Will. Just give him the mic, because he's...
Come on, I don't even start, man.
I don't even know how to start.
You can start by going up there. I don't know how to moonwalk. Notice that walk, man. Listen, yeah, I got this, man. I got this. Hey, D. My phone hurts.
Yeah, my phone hurts.
Really?
You might as well come up to that.
No.
No, we just saying that. Remember when you was training?
Uh,
My phone hurts.
I'm on
Go
the
ahead.
camera.
Good.
Alright, civil lesson book 14, A1. Clearfield Trust versus United States, and basically more civil relation concepts. We didn't come up with a price as of yet, but you leave a number with me or Delilah, or Hatui, or Amuth, and we can order it for you. I mean, we could do it for you. You can make your order, and then from there, you'll have your 14A1.
And that's a study so that you could do battle. Are we clear?
You dropped the mic.
Now, keep in mind, see, now it's an important case because it is a 1942 case. For those of you who know law and jurisprudence, keep in mind with the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case, that was the case of 1938. And that's with the legislatures and the judicial, it changed from legislating under public law, which is consonant with the American Constitution, and to the contrary became foreign entities and actors doing business and doing foreign activities, legislating under public policy. So keep that in mind, public law and public policy, you must know the distinction. They're talking about the shells, and if you don't know that they're talking about the shells, logically, you wouldn't really know how to even proceed. You assume things and you'll be totally incompetent. You understand? So this is specifically giving you the background to the case to give you the nature of understanding what your arguments would be. Are we clear? So when you're talking to them in any lawful or legal processes and you think that you're talking to government, you're not. You talk to a private corporation registered in Puerto Rico with a representative operating here pretending to be government. Now you understand why I gave you that earlier history? Now, by you being the heir of the estate, if you call them judge or officer, they accept your offer because you're an heir. And when you make that statement, that's called a trust statement, in case you didn't know that. Do you understand? And then they start exercising that power. So don't get pissed. You're supposed to know the history. Isn't that right? Isn't it the rule, honor your mothers and your fathers?
That's right.
That your days may be long upon the earth land? So you're talking about a state, right? So you ain't talking about a cloud. It says earth land, right? So they've been stealing your estate, and if you don't know this history, you don't know you got an estate, you start talking stupid, and they take advantage of you, and then you want to call them prejudiced when you actually out to lunch. Are we clear? That's why you're giving the history. All right? So that's what the Clearfield Doctrine is about. All right? And so you must understand the distinction. So I put examples so that you could have a measuring stick by which to look at these things. Are we clear? And this is what spurred Heru and Delilah to print this off for people who are in fights so that you can start protecting yourself, even though we know that you have other studies to do, because your concepts, for the most part, would be absolutely wrong if you don't know this history. All right? So that's why that's out there. And so it's actually a part of the book, but because people are at different degrees and people need to have some background, that's why I gave it to you. All right? And so that no matter what kind of information you come across, that your concepts will be right. So whether you're dealing with trying to authenticate the birth certificate or using uniform commercial codes, doesn't matter what methods that you're using, that your concepts will be more correct while trying to use them. And also understand and bypass them, you don't damn need them. All you need is to be yourself, because it's an airship. And a lot of these different methodologies were actually introduced by Europeans to divert you and to buy time for them. Because when it boils down, can't nobody, I don't care how beautiful you make your argument, if you ain't Moorish American, you're not an heir. They're making the distinction between the nationals who have been fraudulently charged with the debt that don't damn exist when actually they're heirs to the estate that was squandered. You see? And so when you understand that and you start teaching it to your children, they will not grow up with an inferiority complex. You don't have to sit around and talk about, you are somebody, I think. You know, and all that stuff. They're the heirs to the world's largest estate. Once they understand this, they're going to grow up not only with pride, but they will not divert their energy and waste time, march around and circle nigger organizations. They will shun them like the plague that they absolutely are. Claim their estate and start learning early. And by the time they're teenagers, they'll be so sharp in jurisprudence, they can't come to communities, gentrify the communities no more. That's why they gentrify communities. These people don't even know they don't own property. And what I was looking for actually, to show you, for those of you who know, you understand what Tropicant was talking about when he was speaking on the floor of the House, and he was talking about before 1913, all property in North America was held by a allodial title. Now you understand the Aboriginal title? And most of these people never even heard of an Aboriginal title or an allodial title. All they know is deeds. And as soon as they start talking like that, the man knows they're under a spell. You understand? So we've got to get you confident being the heirs by knowing the history, and therefore, whenever you're making any claim, that your claim will be confident, and you will not mix connotative linguistics with the denotation of the heirship. Don't make that mistake, because as soon as you do, it's just like in the ring, you know, you get in the ring, you're being all cute, put your hand down because you want to do a selfie, and then somebody punch you in your eye, then you want to talk about the ref jumped you. It usually don't happen like that. You know, so don't go in the ring cute and think that they ain't gonna punch you in your nose. So when you're in the gym sparring, you understand, you're getting smacked around to make you to respect the game, because when you're in the real world, they ain't gonna take no mercy on you. So think of it the same way. All right, so anyway, Heru and Delilah, with the help of Hatwi and Anu, they've been meeting, and they decided to publish so people have something to fight with and stuff. Here, look at sister back there. Go ahead, girl. Anyway, so that's why this happened. All right, and so those of you, who don't have an extended background in history, in law, you could use this as a tool, as a study tool for yourself and family members who may find themselves in these types of problems. All right, clear up your concepts. But keep in mind, in doing so, what occurs is, this is the point. When you start making lawful arguments in a competent manner, what it does is actually kills the bonds. See, you don't really capture the instruments. What you do, you kill them by simply speaking up. But this is also why they don't teach trust law, because they don't want you to know that. They want you to think that you got to jump through a million hoops and fill in a lot of forms that they create under color to get you to sign stuff. And every time you sign stuff, you just created another bank bond. It's a negotiable instrument, because they know these people don't know law. Make them think they're going to get a taffy. It's a big taffy, and you're going to walk down the other end of the block. You thought Jenny Gray, of course, you a taffy running down the block with no wrapper on. They didn't lick you. By the time you got to the other corner, you lost all kind of weight. So keep your wrapper on. You understand what I'm saying? It's a trust. Yeah. And so they set up a world trust. And so write this down, global world trust. That's what all of the corporate states are going in and out of. Now, and keep in mind, social security numbers with the dashes is debtor. Without the dashes is a creditor. Same number. And so whenever you're doing with them, they'll take that number without the dashes and then claim you on the debtor side with the dashes, and then they'll act as your trustee with the social security number without the dashes, and they go in and out of the Sister QB trust. And that's how the United States corporation companies have been using. This is why you can go in different venues that they'll have, and you'll see them still using those Sister QV trusts, whether people are physically living or physically dead. They don't die because they're against the world's largest estate. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Yes.
So don't get caught up in the idea because grandmom died that they ain't still using that Sister Q. Are we clear? So when you start declaring your nationality and making it public, it starts interfering with the movement of those things. That's why the nations are dumping them T-bonds. Because it's enough people speaking up, even though it's thousands speaking up. By numbers, it's a lot. But by the overall, it's a little. But it's enough to shake the world's governments where they're paying attention. And so what they're trying to do, the nations of the earth are dumping them T-bonds as fast as they can without collapsing their economies. And this is why, like China bought about 2/3 of Detroit is under Chinese control now. 62% of all major buildings in southern Manhattan is under Chinese Manchurian control now. Your port in Philadelphia is under Chinese control. Longport and Los Angeles Port, the two largest import ports on the North Continent, Chinese controlling them now. Are we clear? And they're not transferring them with what you call dollars. There's them T-bonds that's against the Moorish estate. That's why the Europeans really upset, because they have to accept them because they're pristine. But they're not. See, it's like a catch-22. They can't tell them not to accept them. So what they're doing in Oklahoma now, I think their legislature is, and in Canaan, in Canada, they're putting like a $300,000 tax on many of the houses to try to stop the Manchurians from buying houses, and they're buying them anyway because it's a drop in the bucket to them. Because Manchurian gold has backed the United States corporation's debt for over the last 50 years. And they misused it. Y'all do some research in England, what somebody called the London whale, and you'll understand that background. Go ahead, get a brother Mike. Right.
Taj, can you tell me how does that tie into the offshore accounts?
The offshore accounts, that's in the 2847, that's where they're cribbing all of them. So what they've been doing is freezing them. This is why you see a lot of Europeans. So look this up, y'all. So-called wealthy white Americans denouncing their U.S. citizenship and nationalizing in other nation states. You don't see them filing no UCCs, and you don't see them trying to authenticate no birth certificate. They're nationalizing. Because it's like they're trying to leave the jurisdiction. And then what they're doing, they're still putting a levy on their accounts. So remember, for the last 10 years or so, they've been going after all those offshore accounts. And any corporate entities that got treaties with them, they ain't hiding nothing. And this is what else is happening. Look. So, see, this is what's happening. Let me show you how it's working. All contracts and accounts that were originated in dollars in the contracts, according to the origination of the contracts, are to be converted into dollars. This is what they're doing. The contracts that were originating in dollars must be converted into a solvent currency backed by gold or silver from the other nation states, but not from the United States. Therefore, all the hidden accounts, what they got is derivative paper, a bunch of it that they can't do a damn thing with. How about that? So do they have to find the account? No, all right, look. The private commercial paper instruments, right? This how they neutralize it. Say this is a T-bond, right? And the guy got a whole bunch of these in offshore, in the Bahamas and stuff. In an offshore account, right? A whole bunch of these, right? In the safe, right? They take that one and they print 100 more of these on top of that one. That's same serial numbers, all that stuff. And so now it costs more to keep it and preserve it than it's worth. It's dead paper. Called quantitative easing. So do they need to find that account, or do you, I got it hidden under the mattress. Matter of fact, it is the mattress. It's king size too. And that's one of them. Yes. You know, you're gonna pull the zipper on the side. It's gonna be stuffing because that's all it's gonna be good for. You can't pull it out because you can't convert it. That's what's really happening. That's why the Europeans are really upset. Go ahead.
Then they also stuck their toe when they came out with the Real ID Act, when they was trying to worry about the Mexicans coming home, and they all put a thing out, 2017, and they're de facto themselves.
Yeah.
And if they do say that, then this time I can get back
I
in
love it.
chop them.
I love it. This is why when they was talking that trash, before, and we put out the poster, let me see, it was about 4 years ago, one of our books, The Moors and Mexicans, right? So some of the Burlington brothers came to the class in New York because the Mexican families wanted to use my book because they was doing a TV thing in Harlem, right? You know, the Europeans talking all kind of trash stuff, like, and Mexicans coming here taking American jobs and stuff, right? The brothers put out a poster that says, we home. I don't know what you do. We home. It was beautiful, man. I'll find that poster. How many, y'all got the picture? You got that picture here, Dr. Naima? With the Mexican brothers showing the flag with home, real history? I think I left that here with you. Oh yeah, it's beautiful, man. See? Because they're the only alien. See, so but the deal is we've got to get our people to stop their own corrupt language. No, the one with the Mexican brothers showing a poster. That's St. Maurice. Anyway, well, we'll show it to you next time. So as the Europeans are trying to argue about everybody else's nationality, you understand what I'm saying? Their brothers is home. You know what he's mad about? The Star State is a part of Mexico. Up to Nevada, bottom part of Khalifa's territory. Yeah, that's what it is, Olmec. That's Olmec. Home. You know, so the European, and this is where the Europeans so used to talking trash that he just putting his foot in his mouth, because when he starts enforcing those things, that's why, you know, you see Trump, when he talk about the fence and all that stuff. Notice how we retract all that stuff, he ain't talking about the fence no more. I don't think I'll talk about fences anymore. Maybe it's not a good idea. Yeah. But those of you who have a House Bill Resolution 192, read that again and get your concepts correct. Because as this year passes through, you know, the Europeans going to be trying to do the best they can to call all loans. So like I said, if you have a house, even if you so-called think that you've been making payments and ain't missed nothing, they can still take the house because it's a mortgage. It's a dead pledge. It's not an allodial title. There's another reason why I showed you these things, so you can use it as a pattern to make sure that you create a trust and put all your property in trust. You understand? See, because if there's no trust, then there's no challenge. Are we clear? Y'all got that? Y'all got that? If there's no trust, there's no challenge. Are we clear? All right? All right. Any more questions? There's second round over there.
I got a question.
Yeah, you might. Why don't you stand up there and tell us?
No, I ain't got.
Let's put it on camera there.
No, it's for the brother right here. With the white shirt. Earlier you asked a question, you said, when people declare nationality, can they still call themselves Negro, colored, and black?
No, I asked them, I'll just say something. Some trends I've been noticing in particular on the internet, and one's on there, putting it out there like they're doing status person, but they're still seeing black and white. So there's right. So yeah, it's like there's one person not wanting to
Appreciate that too, bro.
put some things out there in the ether too, and I just want to get small like that before I get it. So it's like, put it out there. That's why I asked that. That's where I come from.
So I asked him, I thought it was because, I thought you could ask him for yourself. Right? So, let me ask you a question, just be honest. How many people still say black and white?
Say it again.
How many people still say black and white?
Well,
Thank you.
most of them got color TVs now.
It's in context of what? You say black and white too?
I say it depending on what level the person is under, and then I correct them. I show them the proper way of calling themselves.
All right, so I don't mean as far as teaching a lesson. I mean in your everyday text,
No, I don't.
right? If you saying black and white. So there's a brother named Bakari Bey. He's in Colorado territory. And I did what he called table talk. I did an interview with him. And he asked me, how do I feel about different scholars? Because you got some people who have many more degrees than I do. And they still refer to people as black and white. So he asked me, how do I feel about scholars who have all of these degrees still using those terms, black and white? And does it put somewhat of a black eye on the Moorish Divine National Movement? When it was October 2016 when I went to my first class. It was Taj Tarik Bey, Abdullah Bey, and Rosmarai Bey. And I heard them break down what black meant. And that was the very last time I referred to myself, any of y'all, or anybody else that look like us as black. You ain't going to hear me slip up, not even in the context of teaching, and say something to somebody about any of us being black or them being white. I guess about 3 years ago, I had a 10-year-old boy at the York House.
Yeah.
His name is Anthony. Anthony said, yeah, they told me you to teach it. So I said, yeah, well, what you gonna teach on? And I'm teaching him. I was like, I don't know, we talk about something. So I started talking to him. I asked him what was his nationality. And he, I don't know. Which is the right answer. Because if you don't know, just say you don't know. Don't start making a bunch of uneducated guesses. You make yourself look like a fool after a while. I sat there with this 10-year-old boy, and in less than 10 minutes, I got him to understand that he wasn't black and what his nationality was. He's 10. So this ain't no knock on you, Joel. This ain't no knock on you or you. I'm not talking to anybody. I don't care what level they're on, what degree they have, on no terms of black and white. I'm gonna talk to them how I talk to you. I asked that question because I'm standing and I'm like, man, why would he ask that? Not knowing if it was from you or if it was from somebody else. So the only way to find out is to get clarity.
So that's what I came to do. I'm just standing over there, and the whole time Taj is going, I'm just going through all kinds of thoughts and emotions, but I ain't going to impose on, you know what I'm saying, on nobody else's stage. But I'm just going through like 1.5 million emotions, man, and just thinking about everything that he's talking about and how important it is. Like when you think about Abraham Lincoln, right? How many of y'all knew he was Asiatic or of Asiatic descent? Y'all don't see the cartoons? Y'all don't see the books? Y'all don't see the pictures and the jokes? Y'all don't see the copper penny?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Do y'all know they can't? Do y'all know they don't know where his body is at? Did y'all know that? Yeah, why not? Why can't they find the president's body? Why can't they find Kennedy's brain? Taj just sitting here telling y'all when he's reading Orem Sanctum, when he's reading the Pope's letter, they got 1,000,001 secrets. Why can't they find the president's body? Why would he got buried? Why did they dig him up and move him and put him in a crypt, and now he ain't in that crypt no more? What is it that they don't want you to know?
They don't want you to do it.
Yeah, I'm standing over there, and I'm just that's why I was standing there. I don't know if y'all see me. I'm just rocking back and forth, like I want to say something, but I don't want to say nothing. But listen, man, history is so very important. That's where it all started for me as a youth. History. I was a history junkie, so I started reading. I started reading all about history. I didn't find out about true history until about 6 years ago, when I bumped into Taj and Abdullah, and I got these lessons from these guys. I got lesson after lesson after lesson. You learn by listening. You don't learn by going back and forth and saying, no, so-and-so talk. No, shh. Quiet your mind and listen. History, not his story. History. It's a difference. His story is different than history. Learn history. You learn history, you'll learn some law. And when you learn law, you gotta learn some history. Put it together. Taj mentioned one thing that the prophet mentioned, and I had this conversation with a brother named Nasser earlier today. Somebody I know got accused of pulling a gun on somebody. Now, let's just say this is a gun right here, right? This is the gun. This person that was accused of brandishing his gun is going to be him, right? Now, when I drop this on your lap, just freeze. Now, if I take this gun and put it on this guy's lap, that's what he'll do. He's scared to death of guns. But he was accused of pulling a gun on somebody. 20 police showed up at the house. 20 police showed up at the house over an accusation. No other witnesses, no videos, no nothing. They showed up. I went down to the 35th district today, and I'm like, listen, you know, this, that, the third, blah, blah, blah. There ain't no video, there ain't no witnesses. Why did y'all come out like that? Well, it was said that it was said. It was said. So just because it was said, he was already found guilty. He wasn't even afforded due process. This is why it's important to learn law. No due process. He's already found guilty. They say you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, right? Not with us. With us, we're guilty until proven innocent. That history that he just talked about, that Orem Sanctum, that's the history we need to understand. They still operating off of the secret treaty of Verona and everything that falls under that. And we don't know that because we don't know about this stuff. Because we don't know history. Don't get, I'm gonna snap. If y'all, don't get caught up in empire and power and Sunday football games and all of that type of stuff. Don't get so caught up in that you turn away from your history, from true history, because in the Bible it says the truth shall set you free. And the only way you're going to find the truth is to go back and get it. Because it's not here. You got to get a hold of some ancient books. You got to sit down and talk with some ancient people, some elders. Taj talked about the mothers giving the children memories from ancient past, from times past. All of us got the same thing. We all got it from our mothers. When you lay down at night and you dream, and you bump into all these people and you feel like you know them, it's because you do. They're your ancestors. They're your ancestors. Don't be afraid of them. Talk to them. Embrace it. If you see people, if you see things, don't be freaked out. Talk to them. Our history, y'all. We say we got people who will argue us down tooth and nail that we're black. All you got to do is take them back in the history and ask them, how long have we been black? And then when they want to argue with you, then what you do, you hit them with history and fact. So what you do is you take people to stuff they know, right? So let's go back to 1964. Let's go back to 1963, before 64. You ever heard Malcolm X call anybody black? I'm asking.
No.
Any of y'all ever heard Martin Luther King call anybody black? What do they call him? So how long we been black? I mean, you're an elder, you know what I'm talking about, right? How long we been black? Since 1968, when Martin King got assassinated and James Brown performed on Black and I'm Proud in Boston, Massachusetts. April 5, 1968, history. I ain't making it up.
That's history.
Now, you got a couple years on me, so you know they were saying Negro, but your grandmother and grandfather said what? Color. So how long we been black? But they will argue you down tooth and nail. We black. And take it all the way back to Kemet. And Kemet was the ancient black land.
Yeah.
But there are lands that's older than Kemet. And nobody in those lands were called black. What about Nubia? That's old right now under 250 feet of water because of the dam that was built. You gotta go back in history. You gotta know that in Nubia, there are more pyramids, there are more temples, there are more sacred writings than what's in Kemet.
Yes.
It's under 250 feet of water for a reason. So you can't go back and see it. Oh, why they weren't talking about black people? If you go down to the Yucatan, they ain't say nothing about no black people. Nowhere. But you see an Olmec statue that's as tall as this wall that date back to 1500 BC. That's 3,500 years ago. But you're telling me about a slave ship and you're telling me about black people. You got to embrace history. I ain't saying you got to sit there and just read day in and day out, but read sometimes. And embrace history, embrace your culture. And know that there were no Indians, it was you. There were no Indians, it was you. If there were Indians there, riddle me this. Let's just say me and the elder came from Nigeria 3,500 years ago. And we went to the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. That's around Cancun and all around that area right there. And there was nothing but Indians over there. Is it possible that we made, me and this guy, me and the elder, that we made so much of an impression on these Indians that they made a bunch of statues and carvings that look like me and him, and none that look like them? Where are the statues of the Indians, y'all? From 3,500 years ago. I'll wait.
Everybody holding their breath.
There ain't none. Islam.
Islam. They haven't produced a slave ship yet for us to see and walk on and have some kind of evidence of one being even in existence.
So I heard they got a group of brothers together. What was it? Who, Nigerians or somebody?
Yeah.
So they supposed to be collecting finance, and they're on a mission to find these slave ships, right? And people are actually donating to this cause. Now, how many of y'all ever been to Jamestown, Virginia, or Williamsburg, Virginia, or something like that? Did any of y'all see any slave ships down there?
Nope.
Now that's where the first ship was supposed to have gone, right? 16, 19, 20 people. So I was down in Jamestown, Virginia, over at the visitor center. And the Daughters of American Revolution was there. And I was pissed off because I didn't have no feds, right? So I'm asking the lady, I said, well, listen, y'all ain't got no remnants of no slave ships, y'all ain't got no chains, no. Yeah, she looked, here you go. She said, sir, she was appalled. She was actually acting like she was embarrassed and offended because I asked if you got any remnants of us. Hey, I'm not the one bragging about it. You got it on your license plate, Jamestown 1620. I'm not the one bragging about what happened in 1620. You are. So don't get offended when I come in and I ask if you got some remnants of your slave ship that you said you brought 20 of my people over here on and kicked this thing off. It's history. It's history.
I want you to read this paragraph and read the excerpt from the poem there.
Y'all see how Taj made me come down and work? I'm supposed to be standing on the door. I can't, you know what I'm saying?
It's set and ride, y'all.
Taj put the set and ride. From upon slender threads.
Read the paragraphs. This is an excerpt from 1899. This is where an oil painting of Mataoka was being presented to be hung in the Senate. And this is from welcome, a gift from London to be hung in the Senate here for Mataoka. And you know Mataoka, since you mentioned Jamestown, first aristocracy set forth, is misrepresented in history as Pocahontas. I could read the paragraph and then read the poem.
With them 3 lines is the poem?
Yeah, just read the paragraph before it and the lines of the poem.
Upon slender threads often hang the momentous events of history. John Fiske, the historian, in his book, Virginia and Her Neighbors, speaks of Pocahontas as one of the noblest and loveliest characters in American history, and asserts that the rescue of Smith See, this when you know history. All right, let me start over. How many of y'all know the story of Pocahontas? I mean, the real story about her and Jack. All right. So y'all know. So a couple of y'all know why I'm laughing.
I mean, know who John Fish is.
So some of y'all know why I'm laughing. Let's go. Upon the slender threads often hang the momentous events of history. John Fiske, the historian, in his book, Virginia and Her Neighbors, speaks of Pocahontas as one of the noblest and loveliest characters in American history, and asserts that the rescue of Smith by her was an event of real historic importance. Without it, the subsequent relations of the Indians, of the English colonists, become incomprehensible. Forgive me. And he adds the significant words that but for her friendly service on more than one occasion, the tiny settlement will probably have perished. The charm of romance will ever hang over the story of Pocahontas, and that flower of the wilderness will ever shed its brightness and its fragrance over the rude, somber, and cruel scenes of our people's earlier struggles to get a foothold in the land whose inhabitants are now the stars of heaven, the leaves of the trees, and the sands of the sea. But far beyond this, it should not be forgotten that she was indeed the guardian spirit of the great founder captain, John Smith, and his feeble company, and who knows but for her what had been the new world's destiny. It is meet that her portrait should hang here in remembrance of her lovely character and her pious deeds, and the myriads that gaze upon it, wondering whence came the gentle spirit that dwelt in the savage breast, will be minded also that the men are brethren, and that even in the dark shadows of the forest primeval, there may shine a light from heaven, and there be found. The poem says, a spark of that immortal fire, by angels shared, by Allah given, to live from earth our low desire.
So as you can see, they are Muslims. That's the point. And they've told you differently. So that undermines their reconstructed history. That's why I had to read it.
So how many of y'all didn't know the story of Pocahontas? Just 2 people? All right, I'll tell y'all anyway. So you know her father was said to be like
Tani.
the most powerful and one of the most ruthless chiefs around. He wasn't taking no crap. Now, this dude John Smith and his company, because that's what they called him in here, his company, and his crew of goons, was running around robbing and stealing and pillaging and doing everything that the Albion does. And let me be clear, because I've been called what they call a racist before. This ain't got nothing to do with me being racist, quote unquote, or me hating the Albion. I'm just speaking fact. This is what they do. They thrive on destruction. So this is what they were doing. When the chief found out who it was, he went and got John Smith and his company. And they was going to take their heads off. Pocahontas came running out and said, whoa, hold on, Pop. I love that man. I said, what? What do you mean you love this guy? This guy's been running around raping and robbing and stealing from your people. What do you mean you love this man? When they talk about right here how she saved him, she saved his ass. Because Pop didn't kill him. Now, her name wasn't Pocahontas. What was her name? Maduaka. Yeah, that wasn't going to be her name anymore. Her name was going to be now Rebecca Smith.
Yep.
And she was going to take a boat ride over to London with John Smith after they got married, right? Yeah, nobody never heard from her again. Now, we know that our society is a matriarchal society, right? And that heir is that daughter. So when he married her, and then she just happened to die or disappear, then the land becomes whose? It becomes his, right? And then that land was granted to who? The illustrious King James. And then you got that Virginia colony becoming Jamestown. Now you got Jamestown, Virginia, and that's where it all kicked off. History, y'all. History. History. You gotta learn history. That's why when I was reading this, I started laughing. And forgive me for laughing, but it was just funny to me. Because when you know the true history, and you read some stuff, you know, some people get emotionally twisted. They read stuff and because of what we've been taught, it troubles people. But at some point, you gotta be able to unlearn what you learned. You gotta know that you've been lied to, and you got to accept that you've been lied to. Because if you don't accept it, then you can't move past it. The only way to take a step past a certain thing is to accept a certain thing. When somebody in your family transitions, you don't like it, but you deal with it. And as soon as you accept it, you're able to move past it. The same thing with everything else in life. Accept the thing, move past the thing. We've been lied to. Just Taj talked about movies earlier. National Treasure, Da Vinci Code, all of these different movies. When Da Vinci Code came out, what did they say? What was the biggest commercial? What if everything you ever been told was a lie? They kept running that over and over and over and over until listen, you know, now I give you a test. Go ask the people in your family that's religious how many of them seen Da Vinci Code. They didn't watch it. The church told them not to. The church didn't want them to watch Da Vinci Code. Why not? Why not? It's only a movie. It's only a movie. Why can't I watch the Da Vinci Code? All right, now, I got an aunt. She refused to watch the Da Vinci Code, but she watched Spartacus. I don't know if any of y'all ever seen Spartacus. I only seen it because she watched it. They listen. Huh? It's gory. They be chopping off heads, all kinds of blood, homosexual acts. She watched Spartacus, but she won't watch Da Vinci Code. That's crazy to me. History. And even in movies. I'll give you some movies to watch. There's a movie called The Giver. Any of y'all ever seen it?
Yes.
Anybody who hasn't seen The Giver, watch that movie. That movie is going to blow you away. I saw when Lucy came out, everybody was talking about Lucy. Lucy, taking you back to the first woman and taking you back to using 10% of your brain. And then what if you can use your whole brain and start to think stuff and things start to manifest and start to happen? Everybody was Lucy, Lucy, Lucy. Well, The Giver came out at the same time Lucy did. So I just happened to be coming out of Lucy and I was like, and right across the hall, The Giver was starting. So I went and watched it. Yeah, I snuck in. I snuck in.
You paid your fee.
Good, right? They owe me, right? They run a movie theater on my ancestral estate, right? So, but The Giver blew me away so much that I had to turn around and do a class at the York House in Philadelphia on the movie. We actually showed the movie. We showed the movie in entirety. We were Skyping with Canaan Land, so they watched it along with us. This is how much this movie just like grabbed me like this, like, right? Before the movie started, I told everybody, I said, get a pen and a piece of paper. I want y'all to take notes. Because when this movie is over, we're going to discuss this movie. Listen, I was so damn happy. Because they had so many notes. I didn't have to say much. Because that lets me know that they see what I see. That lets me know that first eye is actually open. Because that movie, trust me, y'all, I can tell you a little bit about it. I don't want to give it away. The Giver is an elder, right? So the elder has all the secrets. He has all the knowledge of history, right? Now they got all of these people living in this big old community, right? There's no sex to be had. There's no hugging. There's no kissing. There's no fighting. There's no nothing. They literally control everything. They control the way you think. Because every day when you leave the house, you got to walk over to the door and you got to put your hand on the thing and you get a shot. And what the shot does, it suppresses your memory. Vaccines, right? You get that shot. It suppresses your memory. Listen, you don't do this. That don't happen at this place. There's no shaking hands. There's even no memory of shaking hands, except for the giver.
Oh, one of them, just one.
Just the giver. He knows. Nobody else knows. Now what happens is, there's a graduating class, and in the graduating class, there's one person, and you're not going to be a receiver. So what I need you to do is go spend your days with the giver. And what the giver is going to do is periodically give you some information, like the giver, right? Taj. Periodically giving you information and taking you back into history and showing you stuff. So you go back in history and you see a murder, and you wake up like, what the? Because all of that stuff is taken. Your mind is suppressed. You don't remember any of this. They deliver babies to people. They got a factory where they make. And they bring her, see how you're pregnant, right? Yeah, no, none of that. They bring you a baby and say, hey, here you go. That's your little boy. Nothing to do with you. This dude starts to open up that first eye, and he starts to see stuff. And he like, wait a minute, something ain't right. So what he does, instead of every day going to get that shot in his stomach, he put an apple over there, let the apple get the shot. So now his mind is starting to open up. I don't want to give the movie away too much, but trust me. Trust me.
It's good.
Trust me. Yo, trust me. It's one of them. Yo, trust me, I didn't.
Nah.
I gave you a bit.
It's way better than that.
Trust me, I gave you a bit, just enough to, but it's in the movies, The Giver.
Yeah, they forced me to watch it. I don't regret it.
Listen, bro. Let me show you what they do. Let me show you what they do. They made it like that was a black and white love story. I mean, not black and white, like in the terms, connotative terms of black and white. The movie is in black and white. So it looked like an old black and white love story, like this guy's in love with this girl. So, you know, who gonna want to go see it? Who care about this boy being in love with this girl in the black and white thing? Trust me, it's one of those. They put it out there, and they did like this, right over everybody's head. If it wasn't for me coming out and it started, I probably wouldn't have watched it. They're giving you clues, like Ty said, National Treasure, The Island of Dr. Monroe, The Planet of the Apes, The Giver, Avatar, all of these different movies, even the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah,
They tell you. Who?
Time Runner.
Time Runner?
Yeah, with Justin Timberlake.
I didn't see that, but
You gotta see that.
if the brother say, if Joel say Time Runner, then Time Runner.
Yeah, you gotta see that.
It's right there. It's always right there in your face. It's just a matter of if you want to accept it. Right? Some people don't want to. Some people can't see it, and then some people don't want to see it. Right? You got to be able to see, but at the same time, you got to want to see it. I mean, it's frustrating at times because you see stuff that other people don't see, and at times you just got to swallow it and you got to grin and bear it because they don't know. Right? Listen, man, I barely can watch TV. I can't watch commercials. I see all kinds of stuff. I'm saying, listen. They got a movement called eugenics, and that's to them that's scientific racism, right? And they do stuff like there's a commercial on TV. See, I could be tripping. Maybe I see too much stuff, but this is what I saw. There's a European dude in a minivan with his little boy in the back, and they got TVs in the headrest. And they talking about how nice this van is, and it's got TVs, and you need to upgrade, right? And then they show the brother with his little boy in the back seat, he taking a cell phone to the headrest. Maybe I see something that other people don't, but I see the images that they putting out there, right? When I'm riding up and down the highway, and I see the FBI billboards, the digital billboards, and it's always got somebody's face look like mine talking about murder and robbery and assault and battery and drugs and all that stuff. Hey, listen, these Albions ain't commit no crimes. Go look at the top 10. FBI's top 10. Ain't none of us on there. But it's always us on the billboards.
They just be frank and they just be
Psychological pranks, right? Psychological pranks. But and see, this is you got to remember. See, the babies, they see this stuff. So when the babies see it, every time they ride by and they see the billboard, they say, "Damn."
That's what we're supposed to do.
That's what they see, right? What else they want to know?
We're supposed to do something.
What else they want to know? If that's all they see growing up, it's up to us. Like Ty said, the mothers got to get this. When the mothers get it, the babies get it. If all of our mothers knew about more science, well, we come out the womb with feathers on. We come out the womb with turbans on.
You read that right.
I have a question before we get out of here. How many of y'all will be interested in starting school? My school. Yeah. So I'm gonna tell y'all this before I get out of here. It's time to put me to work. I wasn't playing no more. Islam family. A few years ago, we talked about getting a school started, probably about 2 years ago. And what we talked about was getting container trailers and modifying them. You can go on YouTube and you can see people getting container trailers, they turning them into homes, they turning them into businesses, they turning them into this, they turning them into that. I just acquired our first trailer, y'all. I just acquired. I acquired it. But it's for us. So in a matter of a couple months, we're going to acquire the second one. We're in the process right now of finding a lot so we can set up shop. I got 2 master builders in the room. I ain't gonna point them out, but get ready because we got work to do. We're going to turn these trailers. We got you building too? Yeah, we're going to get a mother a hammer.
Carpentry.
You'll see.
We're going to get a mother a hammer.
She's tight.
Listen. I got a phone call. Well, I got a text message 3 weeks ago. Usually, I send out a group text for the York House, and it's usually 20 people in each text. A brother responded to the group text, and the response was, Islam brother, forgive me for missing class Saturday, but I had an urgent family matter. The urgent family matter was that his 4-year-old daughter had gotten molested that Friday at school. A 5-year-old boy had taken her in the coat closet and poured down her pants and her panties and touched her. Now, the problem is that he did that, but the bigger problem is that he knew to do that.
Right.
So that means that he either sees it or it's either being done to him.
Uh-oh.
Right? So, Mother Rosemary Bey was included in that group text, so she saw that text. So me and her shared a private text, and I told her my thoughts about the trailer. And she just got excited. And she said, it's got to be a community effort, meaning I can't do it.
By yourself.
Meaning I need y'all. Right? Keep this in mind, y'all. I don't have no babies. I don't have any children. But I know some of y'all do. So I ain't building a school for me. And I ain't building a school for my babies. I'm building a school for our babies. We start off small, and then we humbly grow. If y'all in, let's get it cracking. If not, stand back and watch, and y'all see the finished project. But we talked about it a couple years ago, and all things in time. It's a time and place for everything under the sun. And the time is now. So that's what it is. We're going to get that school together for these babies. So when that baby comes out, we got some way for that baby to go. Because we can't stop in Philly. We down here in the Delaware territory, so we got to come to Delaware and we got to make it happen too. We got to crawl before we walk. So when that baby comes out, you got to know that baby gonna have no balance. He's gonna sit up, his head gonna be too heavy for his body, and he's gonna fall over. And then he's gonna learn to sit up. And then once he sits up, he's gonna get on the floor. And he's gonna want to crawl, and then after a while, he's gonna try to test his balance. And then he'll be able to stand up, and then he'll be able to walk. That's the same process we gotta take. Right now, we're sitting there trying to get our balance. We get our balance, we get that building together. We get 1, we get 2, we get 3, we get 30. Y'all with me?
Yes.
It's not.
Wow.
Read this paragraph in support of the post letter,
Nah,
the
man,
middle
I'm
paragraph.
Read what?
Prior.
Prior to
This is
19...
from House Joint Resolution 192 in Florida House of Representatives. James Tropicant, representative for Ohio, speaking.
Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear, allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, stockholders, held legal title. The U.S. citizen, tenant, franchisee was registered as beneficiary to the trust, by way of his or her birth certificate. In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated all of the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects. The 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen to the Federal Reserve System.
Now take that back to Pope Francis' letter, and he's talking about this whole foundation of this fraud that we're dealing with today has its foundation 150 years ago when the African American was used to back the U.S. government debt. And that's where the hypothecated comes in. And as you can see, as we talked about when we showed you the example of D's allodial title, prior to 1913, Americans own clear allodial title, and you find that the majority of people not only never heard of it, all they know is the deeds, and that's all that they've been hearing about, but that's actually a fraud. And this is where they've been hypothecating our estate and then converting the debt onto us, etc. This is why when people get pieces of this information, they're trying to authenticate the birth certificate, which is really a weak argument, because they got to go back to this foundation.
So can we talk about authentication for a while? Can we talk about authentication?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess authentication became popular probably like a year and a half ago, maybe close to 2 years, something like that.
Yeah, after they ran through the UCCs and that wasn't working for them.
All right, so when I learned about birth certificate authentication, I said, all right, cool, I'm gonna go and check this thing out. So in the corporate state of Pennsylvania, I went to what they call the state capital, Harrisburg. And the process is this. You get that birth certificate and you have to go to the Attorney General's office or the state's attorney, and you have to get an apostille, or what they call authentication. So when you go, they're going to ask you, why do you need this authenticated? And you have to tell them that you're traveling to something like a non-Geneva Convention nation. And the first one on the list is Antigua. So that's the one I use, Antigua. And once you get that, then you have to take it to the federal level and get it authenticated. And then the step after that is to get a UCC-1 and put a lien against the birth certificate. Now, after I did that, I literally did like this. And I called Taj when I was on the way out there, told him what I was going to do. He said, all right. I came out. I told him, I said, I pulled it out of my pocket. I said, what the hell did you do that for? You just went in there. Now, you got this name declaration, and you got this judicial proclamation that says, I just gave that back. That corporate entity that's in all capital letters, that's not me. That noun to give, I gave that back. That European name, I gave that back. And then I turned around and took the very document that gave me that all capital letter name and went in this building and said, here, can you authenticate? Look up authenticate. Can you authenticate that for me? Can you take this document that I said is fraudulent
And make it real.
and you authenticate something, you give it credence. When you give it credence, you say it's real. You just hold. Now, didn't you just take 7 or 8 copies of this and send it to all these, the U.S. Department of State, the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, and you said that that wasn't you. And now you want to take the same very document and authenticate it? Now, let's go past there to the UCC-1 and becoming a holder in due course. If you know anything about contract law, you can't say you're the holder in due course of a thing unless you have the original thing.
Exactly.
Where's the original birth certificate at? New York.
Exactly.
Tucked away?
Exactly.
So how can you put a UCC-1 lien on a copy and say that you are now the holder in due course of that said document? You cannot. It's just like Taj said, you're buying time.
And do they
Now-
charge you for that?
Yeah, you got
That's
they
what
charge
they're
for
about.
everything.
But that's what they're about.
They charge you for air.
That's their work, your money.
Islam.
Islam. What I noticed when I listen to the blog talks, when the commercial comes on, there's a European lady. All she's doing is talking about how to authenticate the birth certificate. So now, if you go to listen to, one of our shows, they want to confuse you and lead you into thinking that you gotta authenticate the birth certificate. And it's crazy. It's like, we know, because it's very subliminal, we know that. But if you don't know, and you think that that's something to do, you can get caught out there. Because she's, gradually showing you how to do it. And it's like on all the time. Even while you waiting for the show, while even before you listen to the show, it's like on all the time. So it's funny to me though. That's all. I just wanted to put that out there.
So what happens? What happens later on when they call you? Who are you? Because at first you said, I'm not that all capital letter name.
Right.
I'm so-and-so Bey. And
Right.
then you, so-and-so Bey, take this document that made you Sasquatch Jones in the first place, and you get it authenticated twice, not once, twice.
Yeah.
On two different levels, on the corporate state level and the corporate federal level. And you get it authenticated twice. And then you're going to go and put a lien on a copy. Now, you're the same dude that decided to challenge your mortgage. And you got mad at the mortgage company because they couldn't present the original promissory note in deed of trust. They sent you a copy. And you said the copy is not sufficient.
Which makes it a fraud anyway.
So why is the copy of the birth certificate sufficient for you to put a UCC1 lien on it?
It isn't.
But that's people not thinking like that. They thinking because they're trying to get some kind of benefit and they're trying to get some little bit of finance that they may be able to, I can use the birth certificate to get. Okay. Have fun. But when they come knocking on your door and they say you committed fraud because you said you was him and then you said you was him and you collected a benefit being him, now you want to go back to being him. You just committed fraud.
Right. You set your own entrapment.
Exactly.
I mean,
And you let them off the hook.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to just proclaiming and declaring nationality and being who you are. We are who we are. We are who we are. The problem is too many people running around chasing pipe dreams, listening to other people, and the thing is this, they charging people all kinds of crazy finance to do this. You can do it yourself. If you want to do it yourself. The problem is too many people are lazy. Too many people don't want to put in no work. And they don't want to put in, listen. There's a brother out there, I didn't want to mention his name, there's no need. But the word is, he's getting people locked up. No, he ain't getting people locked up. If I sell you something, and say that, and you buy it, and you don't check it out, and you don't read it, you just do what I said do, you got you locked up. I ain't get you locked up. So for people who might be watching Facebook Live, y'all probably know who I'm talking about. Stop pointing fingers. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. Study. If you don't want to study, then just be. It's just real simple. If you don't want to study, then just be. Stop trying to do all of this other shit and just be. Proclaim and declare your nationality and live your life. Don't argue with the electric company. Don't argue with the parking authority. You get a ticket paid. If you don't want to study, don't study. But if you don't do anything, proclaim and declare your nationality. Give up on the pipe dreams. The pipe dreams ain't gonna get you nowhere but headaches. You're gonna feel like you've been beat with a pipe. Give up on the pipe dreams. Proclaim and declare your nationality, be who you are, and just live your life. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm done. You got anything
Well, in
else?
doing so, you're actually liberating the generations to come, because it is actually we who have actually been agreeing to and thus casting the spells. And this is what Drew Ali said, I want active Moors, not passive Moors. Why? Because passive Moors have a tendency to become enemies to their own cause, of uplifting their own people. Because it's about estate, and when you do not speak up, it's abandonment. And so the problem continues. And so we're perpetrating or practicing those things that delude to slavery. That's what that complaint is. But if people don't know the history, they don't recognize that they're being irresponsible. They think that, because they care or that they're interested, that represents responsibility. No, proclamation. That's why he says, I want brave men and women who think that things can be made better.
Brother got a question.
Okay.
Just ejecting on what you was talking about as far as the authenticating documents and stuff like that. I was in the doctor's office with my mom the other day, and sometimes I just go off my mind, just be wondering, Googling on my phone and stuff. So I would just be like, do lawyers have to have a license to practice law?
There ain't no such thing as a license to practice law.
So I Googled it, and I just was doing research and looking at it, check to see what it would pop up. And everybody said, oh, Google it, Google it. So I know what it's Google it. And then they talk about the apostolic, about the raised seal, all that, how it went into like a little bit of the history on how that came about and how they got past the prison bar and how they went on to emerge and all this kind of stuff. I didn't really get to finish it because it was like, that it was just something I gotta go back on and do some research on.
So the bar is the British Accredited Registry, right? It's a club, right? There's no license to practice law, right? You are all law. The people, it's the people. I mean, you listen, an attorney represents one who can't represent themselves, right? Now, when you're in a corporate status, when you're in a dead status, a dead man can't talk. When you black, you civil little mortus. Go into the law dictionary and find out what that means. It means civilly dead in the view of the law. So you need that attorney to represent you. So they're just part of an association, a club that represents people who can't represent themselves. That's why when you got an attorney, what do? You sit there and you shut the hell up. You just sit there. He stands up. He say, well, Sasquatch Jones right here, he can't spell his name and he can't do nothing else for himself, so I got his back. It's now, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, what they're told to do, then what happened? What they call it? Unbarred, misbarred, disbarred, something.
Not following proper procedure.
But they get kicked off the bar, right? You get kicked out the club because you ain't following protocol. But there's no such thing as a license to practice law. I was in the courtroom with family about a year ago. Now, I wasn't practicing law, but I was accused of practicing law. What I was doing was this. Well, it says right here that this, that, and the third, and this, that, and the third, and right over here it says this, and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, well, this says that. My man said, objection. He's practicing law. I said, I'm not practicing law. I'm simply reading what's on this page. Magistrate started giggling. Because he knew I was telling the truth. I'm not practicing. How can you practice law? How can you practice law? Right? So I kept on going on and on. I swear, this dude had to be fresh out of law school. He couldn't deal with me. Right? He over there throwing hissy fits and carrying on. So the magistrate said, listen, because you don't have a license to practice law in this corporate state, then I can't let you stand there and do that. No problem. He said, but you can sit down and be called as a witness. Same thing. No need to argue. No problem. I'll sit right here and when I'm called, I'm going to come back up here and read the same stuff that I was reading off the same piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, see, listen. That's why it's important to study. That's why it's important to be able to comprehend the little small stuff. Because he ain't got a license. He said, I don't have a license to practice law, neither do you, chum. You're part of a club. I could be part of a motorcycle club. I mean, so what's the big deal? You're part of a club, I'm part of a club. That's why it's important to study, so you can just clearly be able to comprehend small stuff like that. Because some people might have folded when he said he's over there practicing law. No, I'm not. I'm not practicing law. Not at all. I'm simply reading. And that's all we asking people to do, is a little bit of reading. Spend a little bit of time. And just do a little bit of reading and a little bit of studying. And just watch how the light bulbs start to just click on. And then you just be walking down the street and people will be speaking to you. Why? Because it's just a glow around you. Because you know who the hell you are.
Who the hell they ain't.
That's right. Indeed. That's right. Anything else?
So, I'm in a class with a bunch of other Moors trying to, get our concept straight. And there was a scenario that he said that he went into court or a tribunal, and he was sitting there. It was one of the open ones, the open hearings, and there was an attorney there representing someone else. I believe it was a public defender, and it was his turn to represent an individual. The attorney went up to the judge and said, the defendant is guilty of all charges. Will proceed at a later date. So he was there supposedly to defend the individual, but said he was guilty and didn't even try to fight.
Right.
So they paid him to get him locked up.
We gotta know what leave is.
Correct.
And that they're members.
They're officers of the court.
Right.
Exactly.
And the Zodiac Constitution says what? What occurs when you hire one of them?
You're being represented.
Give them your birthright.
Exactly.
That's all. So just and to what you just said, imagine if I go outside and I punch somebody in the face, right? And they come in here and tell you, "Say, bro, punch me in my face." What you gonna do? Same thing. So you go get somebody that works with somebody and get them to try to take your side against the people they work with.
Ain't gonna happen.
Our people, see, our people's concepts are wrong and they're off. What you gotta keep in mind is learned behavior. Because when somebody gives birth, they automatically think they gotta get a birth certificate. When somebody gets in trouble, they automatically think they gotta get an attorney.
Because they're trained.
Because they're trained, right? But if people understood law, more people probably will go in and represent themselves. You're right, I'm sorry. Present themselves, forgive me. Thanks, D. More people will go and present themselves. Hey, I'm on special presentation for this corporate entity that you think. Because that's all the attorney's gonna do. I'm here representing this cat right here, because he's dead in the view of the law. He can't talk.
Yes, the lunchbox, he can't talk.
I just wanted to ask about this whole thing with Wells Fargo, that this is in the news that they, that some, well, a whole lot of their employees had on these bogus accounts and put all these credit cards, and does that have anything to do with this whole collapse?
I ain't heard nothing about Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
You know something about Wells Fargo?
Yeah, they got fined.
Yeah, it was,
Got a heavy stiff fine.
because they was, using people, just anybody's name, number, and opening up all these accounts when they found out about it.
Yeah, against their clients.
So I was, when I heard that, that was, some of the collapse that was going to take place, because,
Put it on the mic so our voice is soft. We can.
yeah, it was just in the news last week, because that's what my mother was like, that's your bank, that's your bank. I said, well, I don't know anything about it, but the employees were opening up credit cards, just using people's name, thousands and thousands of notes. And so I said, well, maybe this is the part of the collapsing of the economy, because where do you go? Who's going to be charged for this?
I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
this
Is that in the paper or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
people?
It was 5,300, yeah, they fired 5,300
Come
employees.
on, 50 people, you gotta realize that it's a joint effort.
Well, yeah, you know they did.
That's it. That is
They
just
decided
like-
what was going on.
They're like, oh, man,
That's
that's
it.
it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
all.
the thing, so even that, you know.
Islam family.
It's